In the early 1990s, a story was widely circulated in Yichang, Hubei. It was about a ghostly incident at a funeral parlor. The funeral parlor was originally located in downtown Yichang but was relocated to the suburbs in the 1980s. Here's what happened. One evening, just as it was getting dark, a taxi driver picked up a passenger on the road. The passenger wanted to go to the funeral parlor. The driver was reluctant because the funeral parlor was in a remote area with hardly any people around, just a few farmhouses nearby. Driving there meant returning empty, which wasn't worth it. But the passenger offered to pay extra. For the sake of money, the driver agreed. At that time, the taxi industry wasn't regulated, so fares could be exorbitant. The driver charged 50 yuan, a significant amount back then. When they arrived at the funeral parlor, the passenger paid and got out. The driver found it odd. Why would someone go to a funeral parlor so late? The passenger didn't seem like a staff member either. Since he was already there, the driver figured he might as well make more money. He shouted to the passenger, "When are you coming back? I can take you back to the city." The funeral parlor was so remote that buses stopped running after 6 p.m., and there were no other cars around. The driver thought he was being considerate while also earning a bit more. The passenger, who had already walked several steps toward the funeral parlor's gate, didn't turn around. He just said, "Wait for me then." The driver turned off the engine, parked by the roadside, and watched the passenger slowly walk into the funeral parlor. With nothing else to do, he lit a cigarette. It was already very dark. The driver smoked several cigarettes, finishing his pack. He estimated that about half an hour had passed, but the passenger still hadn't come out. He started to get anxious and a bit scared. The surroundings were eerie. Aside from a few dimly lit houses in the distance, the other directions were pitch-black mountains. Alone outside the funeral parlor, far from any village or shop, the driver's heart began to race. After waiting another 10 minutes or so, he decided, to hell with this money. He didn't care how the passenger would get back. He was done and headed home. Back in the city, he stopped at a shop to buy cigarettes and used the 50 yuan the passenger had given him. The shop owner took the money and said, "Master, don't mess with me. You're giving me scrap paper." The driver took the money back and looked at it. It seemed fine at first glance, but the texture felt off, crisp, not like real money. He started cursing, "Damn it, I worked so late, drove someone to the funeral parlor, scared out of my wits, and got fake money." The shop owner, hearing this, didn't respond immediately. Instead, his expression turned strange. The driver, still furious, kept ranting, "That guy must have deliberately used fake money, knowing I wouldn't check it carefully late at night outside the funeral parlor. Damn, there are so many scammers these days." The shop owner quietly asked, "You really don't see what's wrong with that money? Fake money isn't that obvious?" The driver snapped, not noticing that the owner was stammering in fear. "It's not about being fake," the owner said. "What I see is Jaws paper for the dead. It doesn't even look like Chinese yuan." The driver quickly held the money up to the light. It looked like RMB, though fake. But aside from the texture, it seemed convincing enough. He muttered, "It's fake, but it's made pretty well." The shop owner, standing across from him, could see clearly. Under the light, the money depicted the Jade Emperor, and it was crudely made. The owner hurriedly grabbed a stool, told the driver to put the money away, and sit down to rest. They chatted and smoked another cigarette. After finishing the cigarette, the owner said, "Master, take out that money and look at it again." The driver, now calmer, pulled out the 50 yuan. This time, without even looking closely, he realized it was Jaws paper. He flipped it over repeatedly, stunned. He'd seen plenty of tricks, but money transforming like this was a first. Furious, he jumped into his car, floored the gas, and sped back to the funeral parlor to confront the scammer. At the funeral parlor, he stormed in and found an old gatekeeper. He asked, "Did the guy who came here an hour ago leave?" The gatekeeper asked what he wanted. The driver explained how he'd been tricked with fake money. The gatekeeper paused, then said, "No one came in just now." The driver insisted, "Not just now, an hour ago. My car was parked outside for a long time." The gatekeeper thought for a moment and said, "I did see a car parked outside, but no one came in." He'd even wondered why a taxi was lingering so late. Now the driver sensed something was very wrong. He pressed, "Are you sure no one came in?" The gatekeeper replied, "I'm old, why would I lie? The funeral parlor closed hours ago. If you don't believe me, I'll go check for you." That scared the driver even more. He rushed home, shaken to his core. The story spread like wildfire across the city. Later, a new version emerged. The next day, still unconvinced, the driver went back to the funeral parlor. He actually saw the passenger who'd given him the Jaws paper, but it was a corpse, an unidentified body fished out of the river, delivered by the police the previous afternoon. I've heard many versions of this story, all mostly similar. Some changed the location or the passenger's gender. So, does your city have a story like this?